The other day, I visited this reptile cafe in Osu called Osu Monster Ozo. I've always thought lizards and snakes were cool, but I've only ever seen or interacted with them from afar, probably out of fear. Upon entering the shop and reading the rules on how to behave, there was a part detailing something along the lines of, "This is a unique shop for people who like these kinds of animals. If you are adverse to reptiles and other such creatures, please don't talk about how much you hate it." And that rule actually made a lot of sense to me. The store worker was so knowledgeable and clearly had so much love for the animals he took care of. I felt embarrassed for being scared, so I swallowed my fear as best I could. In the shop were a bunch of display cases with different species of snakes and lizards, and in the biggest window was a huge python just circling around his own enclosure. On all the animals' cages were little info cards detailing their names, species, and lethality. The animals with a higher lethality score were not to be let out of their enclosures or interacted with, obviously. I guess only meant to be looked at and admired.
Sorry.
Hi, Jeffrey.
No, I think it's okay.
Among the animals that were allowed to be let out of their cages was this iguana named Cutie, which means cucumber, who was already roaming freely around the shop when we entered. There was something really funny about such a cool-looking animal moving about so ungracefully that I felt completely charmed by. I had a lot of different questions about the reptiles, and the worker explained it all as best he could. I learned that reptiles smell with their tongues, so when you see a lizard or a snake flicking their tongues, it's because they're trying to smell and understand their surroundings better. I was extremely curious about the massive python and how dangerous he might be, and learned he does not have a name, but his species is called a reticulated python, and he gets fed a whole chicken once every week or every 2 weeks. How he's not venomous, but he has really sharp fangs, and that one time they opened his cage and he attacked an employee, and that employee had to go get stitches, so that's why they no longer let him out. Needless to say, I was glad he was behind a very thick glass wall. Not all the snakes were scary though. I got to handle a few that, despite being strangely cold and surprisingly heavy, were very beautiful and not threatening at all. I will say, it felt very weird to hold them from a sensory standpoint. It's hard to describe, but it felt like a very smooth sequin fabric over a really dense, conscious rope that constantly wants to bend and turn over itself. I will admit, I did get spooked and had to set a snake down once or twice, but I still felt like I was pretty brave for the most part. There were also a lot of lizards that I got to hold, but I felt kind of silly trying to pet them because I didn't know if they even enjoyed that kind of contact. Like, they're not dogs or cats. It was cool to learn about each one, although I didn't always fully understand everything. Apparently, this lizard unknowingly chewed off his own tail, thinking it was food because he tasted meat and just went for it. Luckily, he will regenerate his tail back because lizards can just do that, so it's not the end of the world, but still, so bizarre. At the end of the day, this was a really cool and unique experience that I absolutely don't think is for everyone, but I personally enjoyed. It was also kind of heartwarming to see these animals, so often seen as gross or creepy, treated with so much compassion and care. I'm not sure how soon I'll be returning to this cafe, but it was definitely one of the better ones I've been to. Thank you for watching!